Hello dear students, you are welcome in this video. Dear students, we are back with our series on history of English literature, and this is #19 history of English literature. In this video we are going to talk about a period and its historical background with literature or its characteristics. So dear students, I will tell you what kind of things are there in this particular age. So we are talking about the age of Restoration. First we talked about the age of Puritan or Puritanism or Puritan period, and after Puritan age here we have Restoration. So let's talk about Restoration. Dear students, here #19 history of English literature, period of Restoration, which ranges right from 1660 to 1700, and in this video we are going to talk about the history of this period and the literature flourished in this period. And next we are going to have detailed analysis of the particular literature of period of Restoration in coming videos. So this will be an introductory video on period of Restoration. What is history, what were the historical events happened in this period, and what is the condition of literature or how literature flourished. This kind of things will be the discussion point in this particular video. Here you can see when we talk about history of the Restoration, we find that this history has been analyzed by many scholars, and among them we have one of the scholar, William J. Long, and he says that about Restoration. What is Restoration? He says the Restoration was a great crisis in English history. Now this statement is very important in the light of period of Restoration, because here he directly talks about it is a crisis in English history. So what kind of crisis is it, how it happened, and why the scholar is calling it as crisis? We are going to discuss this point in the coming slides. Very first we talk about necessity of truth and honesty. If you look at this period, we find that in the earlier period, means if you go to the Puritan period, you find that the taste of Puritanism is flourished in that period. We have great poets like Milton, and we have literature of the Puritan period, but this literature now is rejected at a larger extent by readers and writers as well, because according to them there should be honesty in the literature and literature should reflect the truth. So that was the dictum, and hence we find that this kind of things happened in the history of the Restoration. There people felt that there should be a strong government, and this government, as we find this statement crisis in English literature, it is related to the political situation of that period, and we find that there was no any strong government at that time, and hence people wanted strong government, the government of people, because the government and the authorities have become corrupt and irresponsible. If you find Charles II, which we are talking about, the restoration of Charles II, his court, his followers at a larger extent found corrupt and irresponsible regarding the people and the governance. Then we have, as in the last period we talked about Oliver Cromwell's return, and he came as a Lord Protector of England, but soon his government vanished and his rules and stern kind of things vanished very soon in this Restoration period, and hence we find that William J. Long calls it as crisis in history of English people. Then we have there were two parties in England, Whigs and Tories. If you consider Whigs were interested in the parliament and the people. So these two parties are very important still today, because they shaped the democracy in England, they shaped the free government of people in England, and later we found that based on the thoughts and ideologies of this kind of parties, we have a different political system in England. So Whigs were interested for working for parliament and people, and they wanted to curb the rights of king and authorities. So they were, in brief, in favor of people. Against it we have Tories. Tories were those people or that kind of party which wanted hereditary rules. Means if father is there in the authority, son will become the same authority. This kind of system Tories were running in England, and against it we have Whigs. So these parties are very important because they have considerable influence on the mind of authors of that period. In 1688 we found there happened a bloodless revolution, and in this revolution William of Orange came on the throne. So this event becomes important. After a long period we find 1660 restoration of Charles II, son of Charles the first or predecessor we can say, and next we have Oliver Cromwell, and there was a hustle of civil wars and different kinds of wars in the England. And then in 1688 we find many opposite parties came together and they fought a bloodless revolution, and its outcome was William of Orange, who came on the throne, and from there we find some stability received in England in the political system. Now dear students, this was the political turmoil of England, and next here we have literature of the period. Now what is the basic features of literature flourished in this period we will talk about. Here we have very first thing or first feature of the literature of period, break away from old standards. So standards were set by Puritan authors, Puritan writers, Puritan people like John Milton. But now the people wanted some different things, and hence they wanted a break away from the standards which were set by the earlier people or earlier writers. Here we have a statement by Samuel Pepys and John Evelyn. I will read this statement, you will understand very clearly how they looked at the literature of Elizabethan period or the Puritan period. Here we have, for it is the most insipid, ridiculous play that ever I saw in my life. These words are of Samuel Pepys, and we found these words in diary 1660 to 1669, and these words are about Midsummer Night's Dream, a popular play by William Shakespeare. And here he is directly reflecting the attitude of people, the taste of people, what people wanted through these words. Most insipid, ridiculous play he is calling to Midsummer Night's Dream. Next we have John Evelyn, who also is contemporary of Samuel Pepys. I saw Hamlet played, but now the old plays begin to disgust this refined age, since his majesty's being so long abroad. Now if you look at both the statements, you will find the Pepys statement is very harsh regarding Midsummer Night's Dream, a famous play by William Shakespeare. He is directly talking about now the taste of people have been changed. And again we have Evelyn's statement, which is somewhat a mild kind of statement than Pepys, and both statement we find they are talking about the different things there should be in the literature, and hence we find a new kind of literature, a new kind of form of literature came into existence in this period, because people or audience or authors, writers wanted new things in literature. So what were those features, what were those new things? Let's explore. We generally found French influence in this period, and we have French writers who were great writers like Pascal, Basset, Fenelon, Malherbe, Corneille, Racine, Molière. So these writers were famous in France, and the influence very considerably we have on the literature of England. We find that this literature wanted realism and preciseness and elegance of expression. These two new tendencies arose in England in the literature. So in literature now they wanted some realistic elements or realism, men as they are, they wanted to portray them. The society as it is, they wanted to portray them, and hence they emphasized on realism. So realism is one of the feature of this Restoration literature. Next, we find that the elegance of expression, which is also important, means they wanted simplistic language. If you look at the literature of Puritan period, you find it is filled with Latin quotations and elaborate language. But here the writers like John Dryden wanted to write in simple English, in simple style, and hence we found elegance of expression is one of the tendency in this period, preciseness of language. Next, we have representation of men exactly as they are. So this thing also they have incorporated in their writing, in their literature. So representation of men exactly as they are. So they wanted to portray exactly or what they have seen in the reality. So realism is the feature of this literature. We have Dryden's couplet, a new form which we found in English literature. So we will explore it more. Heroic couplet. So heroic couplet is the form we found in Restoration period, and it is for the first time used by Edmund Waller, father of heroic couplet he is called, and he was John Dryden was the pupil of Edmund Waller. Later John Dryden made famous this form of heroic couplet, and in this period we find that they considered form is very significant, or form is everything. Now what is this heroic couplet? Heroic couplet is nothing but 2 lines of iambic pentameter. Now what is iamb? If you go into the practical criticism or prosody or the scansion, you find meters. Here we have iambic pentameter, a very crucial feature of heroic couplet or heroic. If you or someone if asked to you what is heroic couplet, just you need to say that it is a form of lines in which you find iambic pentameter. It is composed in iambic pentameter. There are 2 lines, and iamb means the first syllable is stressed, it is followed by an unstressed syllable, a stressed syllable followed by an unstressed syllable. This kind of pattern repeats for 5 times. Penta means 5 in the poem or in the line. So there are 2 lines. Couplet means 2 lines. In heroic couplet we find iambic pentameter, the meter is used. So iamb is nothing but a stressed syllable followed by unstressed syllable. This pattern repeats for 5 times, means penta. So penta means 5. So you should remember this. So this form flourished in the Restoration period. So I will share the example of this iambic pentameter. Here we have 2 famous examples of 2 famous poets. We have John Dryden and Edmund Waller. We have statements or these couplets of both. Here just you see we have Dryden's lines or Dryden's heroic couplet, and this unpolished rugged verse I chose as fittest for discourse and nearest prose. You see the rhyming scheme, choose prose. Again we have Edmund Waller's lines, heroic couplet. The soul's dark cottage, battered and decayed, lets in new light through chinks that time has made. You see, decayed, made. This kind of rhyming scheme is there in the couplet. So dear students, this is all about the historical background and literary background of the period of Restoration, 1660 to 1700. This period also is important in the history of English literature. If you have any problem, any doubt, you can directly ask me. I will answer to your query. And one more thing I want to share with you, that we have created a Telegram channel called Literature Simply with the same name. Just go to Telegram and join the channel Literature Simply, so that you can get PDF material on different types of literature which I have prepared for you. So thank you very much. Let's meet in the next video.